Alright, this review's probably gonna suck because it's been a while since I've done one of these. I'm just gonna try, as much as I could. So, Shampoo. This is a film that most people probably don't care about, like, at all. But if you're a fan of Warren Beatty, and if you're a fan of Goldie Hawn, or if you're a fan of Julie Christie, or if you're just a fan of, like, 70s character actors, you probably heard of this film at a certain point in your life. And if you're a fan of American New Wave cinema, you've definitely heard the director of the film, Hal Ashby. It's probably Hal, like Hal 9000. It's only got one L. So Hal Ashby is easily one of the most influential, easily one of the greatest American New Wave directors of the 70s. Like, even though I'm personally not a fan, Harold and Maude is clearly like an extremely, well-revered, that's the R that my Asian tongue can't do, well-revered cult classic, and I personally like being there. I mean, that's a great movie, so I give all of my respects to him. However, there's always an exception, even with the greatest directors. And I feel like Hal Ashby usually made great movies when he had full control, when he wrote most of the screenplay, when he was doing all the directing, and when he just had the fullest control. Harold and Maude was the case, and Being There was also that case. Well, not with the screenplay, but he must have had a stronger sense of control compared to this movie, because this movie has Warren Beatty, and if we know anything about Warren Beatty, we know that he's kind of a control freak. And I had to look something up because there was something about the film that just didn't make any sense, because the directing was great. That's something that I expect from Hal Ashby. The acting was amazing because it's Warren Beatty, it's Lee Grant, it's Jack Warden, it's Julie Christie. All of these actors are great. Really, the main thing that was really driving me nuts was the writing, and I had to look it up. And just as I expected, the screenplay for this movie was actually the first credited screenplay of Warren Beatty's. This was Warren Beatty's first screenplay. And unfortunately, it kind of shows. It's a really, it's just a terrible screenplay. It's not well. The character development is rushed at the very end. It's not well portioned throughout the film. The film provides, very early on in the movie, the film provides conflicts between characters and conflicts between interests and whatnot, before establishing the characters, which results in us not really caring about the conflicts, because the conflicts are driven by our interests in the characters themselves. And unfortunately, the film does not give a shit about talking about any of the personalities in the film. And you got these great actors acting their asses off, and you want to really get into it, but you don't know anything about these people. So why would I care about any of these arguments they're having constantly with these long shots of them in this one setting that lasts for like 5 minutes, when I don't care about any of this? And at the end of the film, they kind of rush Warren Beatty rushes all the character development and all the poetic justice and all the dramaticness of the characters' conflicts and whatnot. And, this is something that should have been given to us in the beginning, or at least well portioned throughout the movie. And it tries to bring some sense of poignancy to the film. It's trying to be poignant, it's trying to be touching, it's trying to be mature, but what it really feels like is forced. It's a really forced ending. At the end, you see Warren Beatty on top of the hill, losing his lover to some rich dude, and, Paul Simon's music is playing, and it's kind of misty, it's kind of early in the morning, and you're supposed to feel a certain way about this whole situation. You're supposed to feel some pity towards this character. You're supposed to have this sense of the destruction of the American dream that was kind of the main theme of the American New Wave and most of the great American films in the 70s. And what you really feel is that this whole thing is overly dramatic, it's kind of sappy. The music, although Paul Simon's a great musician, it just kind of adds to the sappiness of the film, because this is not Graceland era Paul Simon. This is not you know, American, like, Sounds of Silence era Paul Simon. No, this is mid-70s Paul Simon. The Paul Simon that wasn't really sure, who wasn't really sure what he was doing. This is post-debut solo album Paul Simon, and this was his kind of adult contemporary era, and it's kind of lame, and it does not help the film at all. And the ending is just forced. It's trying to be so serious, and I think the film... And I think Warren Beatty thinks this is really serious, but it's not. It really isn't. And the film isn't terrible. Like, it really is the screenplay that brings the whole film down. But when you look at the acting, like, Julie Christie and Warren Beatty, they bring their A-game. Lee Grant and Jack Warden, two of the best character actors in the 70s and the 60s, you know, they just bring their character actor prowess all the same. And there's this really great... There are these really great subtle hints at a sense of frustration that people felt at the false promises in the lives of the Nixon administration, because this is set in 1968, which is this is set in 1968, and this is set on the night before Nixon was elected and on the day Nixon is elected. And so, the conflicts of these characters are kind of fueled, and maybe they represent the frustration of not having what they want, and not wanting and losing the things that they want throughout the film. Maybe that's the, you know, amalgamation of their frustration towards somebody's frustration towards the Nixon administration, because I know perfectly well that Warren Beatty's a hardcore Democrat, so maybe that's the case. And it's kind of a great play at the sleazy B-film aesthetic of films like, you know, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, because it's a very sleazy movie. It really sinks deep into this hippie era, all the drugs and the nudity and the sex and the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band playing in the back, you know. It's basically a kind of a classy version of Russ Meyer, and... take that as you will. Maybe that sounds like something that you might be really into. Personally, not being a fan of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, nor Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, nor the other ones he made that are basically softcore porn, this really wasn't my thing. And overall, it's pretty poor. It's an amateurish screenplay directed by a really good director. And that could go either way. Sometimes the director could really resurrect a dead screenplay. Sometimes he just needs to drag the dead horse through the movie, and this is kind of the case. It's not terrible. I feel like it is a good representation of what films were like at the time, and it's a good representation of the 60s, of the late 60s, obviously. But... yeah, the movie's not good. I'm sorry to start this whole new era of my reviews with a negative one, but I'm sure some people like it. It was like a huge hit. I know like some critics do enjoy it, but I think it's pretty mediocre. Yeah, I'm gonna come back with a positive review right away, like literally right after this one. So, yeah, Shampoo, not that good. I can't help it. Bye.